Okay, so for this video, I want to talk about Delaware LLCs and how they are formed under state law. So, whenever you want to form an entity, regardless of what state it might be, you have to file some type of initial document with the state to get that entity launched under state law. So, Delaware corporations, for example, if you want to file to open a Delaware corporation, you would file a certificate of incorporation with the state, which contains a number of different items. And likewise, in order to form a Delaware LLC, you have to file a similar document, but it's named a little differently. So, Delaware LLCs, you file a certificate of formation. It contains some of the same information that you would see in a Delaware corporate charter, but it is much less intensive in that you don't have to include as much information. So, let's talk about what has to be in there. So, the required pieces of information in a Delaware certificate of formation for an LLC is really just two pieces, right? And so this guidance, we can find this directly in the state statute. So we're in Title 6 of the Delaware Code, Section 18-201. So that's Chapter 18. So Section 18-201, we can find precisely what information is needed to create that Delaware LLC. So the two pieces are you need the name of the LLC. So this is kind of an obvious one, but it's important to have it in there. So the name of the LLC, and then you need an address for the registered office, and then the name of the registered agent at that office. That's it, right? So Delaware LLCs, and of course it's got to be signed and dated by an authorized individual, but really just two pieces of information. That's it. In contrast, when we have Delaware corporations, you need not only the name of the Delaware entity, the registered office and address, you need a statement about what the purpose of opening and running the corporation will be, right? So most of the time you just use a generic any and all lawful activities under state laws under that effect. And then you need more information on Delaware corporations. You need to indicate what kind of stock you're going to be issuing, right? So what class of shares, how many shares are going to be authorized, and what's the par value. So you can see here with Delaware LLCs, a much more lean type of filing is required. Just need the name and then just need that registered agent address, and then you're fine. Now, what other information can be included there? So within that section, it does provide that you can include, and this is the precise language used, any other matters the members determine to include therein. Again, optional, right? So if you want to be more precise about how the LLC is going to be governed, let's say, you might include a provision for that. But again, it's not necessary. A lot of these pieces that could be deemed optional to include in the certificate, you just include those pieces with the LLC operating agreement, right? Which is just kept internally amongst the owners. It's not actually submitted to Delaware. Now, some details to remember here. The name of the LLC has to contain the words limited liability company or LLC, right? So it can be limited liability company, LLC with the periods in the middle there, or just LLC. So most of the time it's this last one, right? It's just LLC tacked on at the end, and then you're fine. Now, Delaware is one of these states where they don't require operating agreements, but they're always highly, highly recommended. We always recommend doing an operating agreement for your LLC, even in cases where you just have one owner. So one of the greatest misconceptions is that, well, if I own 100% of the company, I don't need an operating agreement because there's no other business partner I have. So how could I possibly have a dispute with myself that I couldn't resolve just without referencing an operating agreement? And the short answer is, well, LLC operating agreements, if they're drafted properly, they can provide you more asset protection than what would otherwise be provided under state statute. So remember, if you don't have an operating agreement and there's a dispute for whatever reason, state statute is what steps in and is the governing law there, right? But there are provisions that you could change or modify slightly by having a well-executed operating agreement. Now, the last one, who can file the certificate of formation? Virtually anybody, right? So if you're going to be the owner, you can file. If you're going to be an LLC manager, you can file. Attorneys file these on behalf of their clients all the time. You could use a third party to file, right? If you use one of those online service providers that does a nice and quick processing for you, very cheap fees, they're the third party that's filing on your behalf. So a lot of different individuals can file in almost a variety of different capacities. So no issue there with respect to who's really filing this thing. Okay, so that covers it for this video. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video. Thank you.